Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Statehouse report. We're going to go ahead and get started right after I give a quick overview of GoToWebinar for anyone who's new here. So for anyone who's looking to ask questions throughout the webinar, you can go ahead and find that on the right-hand side. There will be a questions panel. Go ahead and type those out, and I will be asking those throughout the webinar of each of our lobbyists as they get to the end of their portion. And just a reminder, we do have one more Statehouse report webinar after this one coming up on May 13th, and that'll be our legislative wrap-up as well. So please go ahead and register for that. A recording of this Statehouse report will be sent out on Monday with the written Statehouse report. So I believe with that, that should be all of my updates. Megan Dollar, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, McKenna. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a ton to talk about. We are officially in the last 2 weeks of session, which means there are no rules anymore, both literally and, and the word I can't actually think of right now. Metaphorically, thank you. So thanks for suffering through that. Appreciate you all taking the time to be here today. We're just going to go ahead and kick it off and get started. We'll get started with Megan Mckillip.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, so as Megan alluded, we have a lot going on right now. So forgive me if I leave anything out, but if you have anything you'd like me to address, please just put it in the chat and I'll happily answer any questions. So I'll start off with House Bill 1326. This is the bill that is addressing the fentanyl crisis. This was heard by the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday into the morning again, and they took testimony on Tuesday and then they voted on it yesterday. There were several amendments, I would say about 10 amendments that were put onto the bill, and I haven't had the opportunity to really dive deep into what each of them do, but just some highlights. There was some more funding and requirements surrounding medical assisted treatment for those suffering from addiction in jails, so that so more strict provisions were put in the bill. And there was some cleanup language that was offered, and some technical amendments as well. One thing that did not change is that the amount of the argument that's been going on is this about possession, right? How much fentanyl you have that would qualify for a drug felony offense. So that looks about the same. It is between 1 and 4 grams of a compound drug that contains fentanyl is a drug felony. Anything below that is a misdemeanor. So that will remain the same. It should be debated next week. It will head to the Appropriations Committee next, and we've heard that that will be on Monday, and then the debate in the Senate floor will be next week regarding that bill. If there are any questions, please let me know. So a couple of things in the Senate. I'll just stay on the Senate side. House Bill 1067. This is the bill that requires a 48-hour bond hearing in municipal court. This is a bill that we are neutral on as a result of negotiations with the bill sponsors and the proponents of the bill. That was approved by the Senate Appropriations Committee today, and they may be debating that in the full Senate this afternoon. I have not heard word, but that is definitely a possibility. And along those same lines, Senate Bill 196 also is approved by the Appropriations Committee and may be debated today. That is the behavioral bill that was recommended by the Behavioral Health Task Force, and this is a bill that includes language regarding municipal court reminder funding as a way to reduce failure to appear arrests in municipal court and divert people away from the criminal justice system. So we're excited that that's moving through the process. One big bill that is up in the House today is House Bill 1355. This is the bill for extended producer responsibility to improve recycling rates throughout the state. This bill was approved by Appropriations Committee this week, and the House will be debating it on second reading this afternoon or this evening. It really is hard to say what time they will be doing that. We are really excited that this is moving forward. We're looking forward to how a program like this can help local governments improve their recycling rates. So very excited about that. There's going to be a few amendments that have some like bootstrap language, we call it, to bolster it up a little bit and clarify some requirements in the bill. But that should get out of the House today. So that's very exciting. The last bill I want to talk about is House Bill 1362, and I'm working on this bill with Megan Dollar as well. So she is available to answer questions on this as well. This is a bill that would mandate local governments adopt energy building codes at a date certain. And we've been in really good negotiations with the sponsors and the proponents of this bill, including the Colorado Energy Office itself. And we're working on changes to this bill right now to make it that so it will work for local governments and not force a mandate of updating your codes to include some energy building codes. So we are really excited about those conversations and how that bill is going to hopefully look when it's debated by the House. So I'm going to end it there since we all have a lot going on. And if there's any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We do have one quick question for you.
Thanks, Megan. And yeah, I mean, our main goal, sorry.
Sorry about that.
I think McKenna said we have a question.
So I believe this is for the fentanyl bill. Did the bill require a show of intent to press possession charges?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, I believe you're referring to the element of whether a person knowingly has a drug that they know contains fentanyl. So that element is still in the bill currently. There was an amendment that was moved by Senator Gardner to remove that language, as the feedback from the district attorneys are that it's really hard to prove. It's a really difficult standard to prove in court, essentially. So that is kind of the background there, but that element is still in the bill right now. But that could change once they debate it on the floor.
Awesome, thank you. That looks like all the questions for right now.
All right, great. I have a lot to get through, and Megan did an excellent job discussing the energy codes bill, but I'm certainly happy to answer any code related questions there. Let me start with some housing bills. House Bill 1051. This is currently parked in House Appropriations. This is the very good bill that we support that extends and expands the affordable housing tax credit and the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. This will expand the amount of units. There was some potential issues with the first floor in looking at a sunset on the program or on the tax credit. Those have been worked out in order to make sure that even if it passed, it wouldn't affect any housing deals. And so that bill will likely pass. It's still in appropriations, but I expect it to move fairly quickly starting next week. And we'll continue supporting that legislation. The next bill is House Bill 1242. This is the bill that creates a regulatory structure around tiny homes. CML is supportive of this bill. It's a very extensive bill around the placement and the inspection of tiny homes. There has been a lot of stakeholder process on it. There's been some questions around whether or not the bill affects municipal land use. As it's drafted, it does not. However, I am putting some individual building code officials, getting them together with members of the Larimer County Building Code Department who helped write the bill, and is kind of leading the charge in terms of how that program is going to work. So we expect there may be still some amendments, even though that bill is actually already in the second chamber and will be in committee on Monday. And I'll be following that and any updates that might help out and provide clarity for municipalities. House Bill 1282, this is the modular housing program, creates incentives for companies to set up modular housing plants and factories here in Colorado. and as well the bill, CML supports the bill, excuse me. CML supports the bill because it will create jobs and then, of course, increase the supply of affordable housing. Modular housing is something that is gaining more and more interest. And so we are pleased to see that that bill will continue to push and expand that industry. That bill has passed the first house, has passed the House and then will be heard in Senate committee. Oh no, it's already been heard in Senate committee. That will actually be passed on the floor in the coming days, if it did not this morning, actually. But I don't expect that bill to have any issues. It is bipartisan. House Bill 1287, this is the protections for mobile home residents. This is, again, something that CML is supporting. We took a support position specifically around the opportunity to purchase provisions and creating a role for local governments in that. That has been a policy piece that CML has been very active on. I will say that as introduced, the bill did include some lot rent stabilization. So the specific, stabilizing the rents where the homes are located, the land is. The governor expressed that with that provision in the bill that he would veto the bill. So when the bill was heard on second reading last Friday, the sponsors ran an amendment to remove that provision, but did suggest that that was still a really important discussion that needed to happen in order to really create meaningful protections for residents. CML is still supportive of the bill. It's now passed the House and will be heard in Senate Finance on Monday. And then finally, a relatively new bill that's been introduced. This is Senate Bill 232. This is creating what's called a workforce housing authority. So essentially attempting to mirror what the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority does. This is a very specific authority that is created to develop workforce housing. It's based on a model out of California. That frankly had some mixed reviews after it actually after it was implemented. The model is really complicated. I won't go into that. I will just talk about why CML currently has an oppose unless amended position, or amend position, if you will. Right now in the bill, it automatically says that local governments need to provide tax relief and basically can't charge taxes for a project that is done through this authority. And that includes not only property taxes, but also sales and use taxes. So we are working with the bill sponsor to get language in the bill that says the municipality needs to be the end decider as to whether or not, first of all, whether or not that project should happen within the municipality, and counties are included as well. And then we ultimately can say no to a deal because we do not want to provide, we have decided not to prevent, or excuse me, we provided, oh my goodness, I think I've broken. Okay, let me back up. So if we refuse or cannot, in order to still be able to provide services, provide tax relief, there's still a stop there. I've only seen them kind of initially. I think we are going to see some more amendments on that bill. So more to come. It will be in Senate State Affairs on this coming Tuesday. Forgive me, lots to go through. Let me talk about a couple of tax bills briefly. House Bill 1062, which creates a sales tax exemption for food. This is problematic for municipalities because it does include sales tax and does not make any sort of concession for home rule. And so we do have some concerns there. That bill, it's been a long time since that bill was actually heard in committee. It was heard back March 7th. The bill is now scheduled for this coming Monday. However, I do expect that bill not to survive. And I think we're going to have a dead bill on our hands, or it will change substantially because there is a substantial fiscal amount attached to it. Another tax bill specifically around business personal property tax, House Bill 1301. This changes the classification of hydroponic farms from commercial to ag. That could theoretically have an impact on property tax revenues. although I will say that that impact is kind of a gray area right now. We are supporting the counties and the special districts to get some language in there that says that if that property tax exemption does end up being concerning or does negatively impact local governments, that the state will backfill that. So more to come on that, but I know it's been laid over. Quickly, there is a homelessness package that's been introduced, I think, since we last did a webinar. It includes 2 bills, it includes 3 bills, 2 of which CML has positions on, so I'll talk about those. 1377, which creates a grant program for local governments and nonprofits in order to partner and provide permanent supportive housing services for the persons experiencing homelessness and get them housed. And then 1378 it creates a program where a city and county, or some mix of multiple cities and counties, can partner together to do essentially what is a one-stop shop when it comes to providing services to persons experiencing homelessness. A person can go to this entity and say, I need this treatment, I need this kind of, I need housing, this is what I need, job search, things of that nature. There is a model that already exists in Weld County, and so we are supportive of creating this entity that would provide a one-stop shop, and look forward to that being created. Okay. 1383, this bill, as introduced, prevented public employers from being able to do background checks on and be able to make potentially not hire a juvenile based on a background check and the fact that that juvenile was part of the criminal justice system. We've since amended the bill to where we can still do background checks and can still make decisions based on that. You just can't do basically a checkbox on the initial application in order to say whether or not you've been in the criminal justice system. And so we have removed our opposition on that. Senate Bill 23, this is the bill that says that and I'm heading into criminal justice territory now. This is the bill that says an officer cannot provide a false fact to a juvenile prior to or during a custodial interrogation. We are working with the bill sponsors right now in order to make sure we maintain funding in the bill for training of officers. That's a big issue for us on the CML side, particularly around liability, making sure, should this policy pass, that officers are trained. And so that is what we're working on today. Senate Bills 145 and Senate Bill 5, these are the grant programs around peace officer mental health, peace officer retention, peace officer hiring. These are all bills that those 2 bills are are bills that CML supports, and those are moving through the process fairly easily at this point. And then finally, in the criminal justice realm, Senate Bill 113, that has to do with artificial intelligence facial recognition. We made a deal in the Senate that created a task force and did put some guardrails around the use of facial recognition, which then ultimately led to CML removing our opposition. We understand that there's a pretty significant amendment that may go on in the House that I am still evaluating, that will go on in second reading, that may put further guardrails around there, but we're working on clarifying that it won't affect our ability to redact or anything like that in body camera footage. And then last, certainly not least on my end, Senate Bill 230, which is collective bargaining for counties, which is the title of the bill. It does create a collective bargaining structure that is very employee friendly and applies that to county governments, and that includes officers, sheriff's deputies as well, and all county employees. That was heard in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee on, what day is it? Wednesday night. Our executive director, Kevin Balmer, testified in opposition. That bill did pass on party lines, and we expect that debate. CML, I should add, CML is still opposed because we know that this is not the full end game of the proponents, and so we are aligning with the counties and providing support. I expect that bill to potentially be debated on Senate second reading today, and I do expect it to pass the Senate at this point in time. So with that, I am happy to take any questions. I apologize, I had to go through quite a few bills, And I will kick it over to Jacqueline, I think now.
Megan,
Yep.
one question for you, just to confirm. Municipalities have been removed from Senate Bill 230 then?
Oh, yes. Thank you for confirming that. Yes, their municipalities are not included in Senate Bill 230. It does not affect us.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all for now.
Thank you.
We good? Okay. All right. I have a long list as well, but hopefully not quite as long as Megan's. No, House Bill, it's a long week. House Bill 1306, the Broadband Deployment Board process. This bill would just speed up the process for deploying funds from the Broadband Board to our rural communities. It aligns the funding requirements with the federal funding requirements, which will help that process move a little bit quicker. This passed the Senate on third reading, and we are in a support position on that. So there was a slight amendment in the committee hearing earlier, I believe it was last week, so we'll have to go back for concurrence, but should be just fine. House Bill 1381, the Colorado Energy Office Geothermal Energy Grant Program that we are neutral on. This bill creates the Geothermal Energy Grant Program in the Colorado Energy Office for single structure geothermal grants, community district heating grants, which means multiple buildings under one geothermal situation. Words are not coming to me today. And geothermal electricity generation grants, so for like utilities to be able to use geothermal energy for electricity generation. The reason we are neutral on this bill is because while we appreciate the ability to have these grants, obviously there has been questions and comments from some of the proponents of the bill to possibly add prevailing wage requirement to access these grants. Well, this is not currently in the bill language now. However, we want to make sure that we are actively engaged in this throughout the process to ensure that that's not a requirement on our municipalities should they want to access these grants in the future. So right now that has not been added, but we're just going to make sure that it is not added. House Bill 1402, the Responsible Gaming Grant Program. This bill creates a grant program to promote responsible gaming and address problem gambling. Right now, I believe they said in testimony, we're the 37th in the state with how we fund our problem gambling and addiction line. This also modifies free bets for the purpose of calculating the sports betting proceeds. This will increase the funding to the Colorado Water Plan, which is something that's really important to our municipalities. They're also amending the lottery statute to allow for non-cash payments, which they believe will allow them to cap the purchases of lottery tickets and have better information for purchasers with respect to treatment of problem gambling. So this bill did pass its first committee hearing yesterday, and it's waiting for its committee of the whole hearing. I believe it's going to happen today, but we are supporting that bill. House Bill 1404 is the Colorado Critical Infrastructure Resiliency Initiative. CML is opposed to this one, and it was PI'd in its first committee by the sponsor, but just wanted to kind of give an explanation of that because I have received a couple of emails about it. This bill created a task force that would be able to enforce resiliency requirements through the Public Utilities Commission on our municipal utilities. We have no information of what these requirements would be, and constitutionally, the Public Utilities Commission does not have jurisdiction over municipal utilities. Further, we're already doing many of these things in the area of resiliency and grid hardening with our utilities, but these things are not shared publicly for security purposes. So we're not in favor of having to share those that information publicly. So just a couple of reasons why we were opposed to that bill. And like I said, that did get postponed indefinitely in its first committee by the sponsor. So we appreciate that. House Bill 1412, the sunset of the Division of Gaming. Yes, we're still introducing sunset bills this late in session. We are neutral on this bill. It will continue the Division of Gaming for 11 years and continue sports betting for 5 years. They weren't comfortable continuing sports betting for the same length of time as the Division of Gaming, since sports betting had not been in existence for long enough for them to fully vet the program, but obviously they'll have more time next time it comes around. There are 2 amendments that are being proposed by the Gaming Association that we are going to help support get on the bill. One of them is underage gambling penalties and making them civil penalties as opposed to criminal penalties. At this point, it's coming out that it's more of just a slap on the wrist, and if it does elevate to more than that, the individuals, they don't want the individuals to be, kept from housing or kept from education or things like that, just because they may have, their friends may have egged them on to go into gambling in a casino one night, as young kids do sometimes, trying to egg each other on. Anyway, so what they want to change it to is a civil penalty, so that hopefully it will discourage people from actually participating in things like that, and gives the ability for law enforcement to do something right away as opposed to having to go through the criminal justice system. So those are the 2, that's one of the amendments. The other amendment is illegal gambling arcades are popping up across the state in areas that are not constitutionally allowed to have gambling or gaming. And so we are supportive of this amendment that will make sure that these are not in areas that are not constitutional gaming cities or towns. Apparently I'm doing a lot on gaming right now because HCR 1006 is the Charitable Gaming Constitutional Amendment. We are neutral on this bill after an amendment which brought it closer to the language from a few years back. A couple years ago, this bill passed, and being that it is a constitutional amendment, it needed to pass with the voters with 55% of the vote, and it only passed with 52% of the vote. So they brought it back again this year. What this would do is require or change the requirements to where a charitable organization would only need to be in existence for 3 years to be able to get their license to do charitable gaming. We also have in there that they are required to register with the Secretary of State, and then it would allow for them to pay minimum wage to their workers that are participating in this process. So that's what the negotiated amendment is, and I believe it is waiting to be heard in the House. Should it pass both houses, which it does have to pass with a 2/3 vote since it's an HCR, and then it would have to pass at the ballot again with a 55% vote for it to pass this time again. Senate Bill 118 encouraged geothermal energy use. We are opposed to this one still. Reason being that it does still cap the permit fees that municipalities are allowed to charge for geothermal energy. It's in the same statute as the solar energy permit fee cap. So that is the reason for our opposition to that one. It is in the Finance Committee, the House Finance Committee on Monday. Senate Bill 120, the regulation of kratom. We are neutral on this bill because we did get our language in there about local governments being able to have more strict ordinances than what is in the bill, which we appreciate. This bill was heard in Health and Insurance 2 days ago, and the committee had some significant concerns with the registration process that was being put in the bill and how it would be monitored by the Department of Revenue, what the underage purchasing penalties would be. So they laid the bill over for action only on Monday in the Health and Insurance Committee, the House Health and Insurance Committee. So hold tight on that one. And I do think we're going to try and get a little bit more information, maybe in a newsletter or a future magazine about kratom, just so we can, since it's such a new substance to people. Senate Bill 178, the licensee's ability to change marijuana designation. We did work with the sponsors. The counties had gotten an amendment on notification and then the taxes for counties. So we worked with the sponsors to make sure that they added in that the amendment requires the, if they are changing the marijuana designation, that they would have to notify the local licensing authority in the local jurisdiction, as well as pay the applicable excise tax on the transferred marijuana. So that did get added in the committee hearing, so we are happy about that. Then Senate Bill 216 is also a gaming bill, reallocation of the limited gaming revenues. We, after a significant negotiation, are neutral on this bill, effective a few hours ago. We got a pretty big amendment. What this bill would do is change the allocations between the limited gaming fund and the extended gaming fund, which, boil it down, would take some money from our gaming cities and towns and transfer it. Basically, the community college system would get a significant more portion of money. So what our amendment that was added does is that it would give $1.25 million to the cities and towns that are losing this year from this transfer. And then creates a work group for our local governments, as well as everyone else who receives revenue from the limited gaming fund, to see if we can collect new information to ensure that the funds are being transferred to these entities fairly and with the appropriate data that's causing them to be transferred. So we're pretty pleased with that result. That should be heard on seconds on the Senate floor today, I'm told. Still to come, I have two bills that we're waiting for. One of them is the restaurant manager bill that I have spoken with our clerks about, but this one would remove the requirement to register a restaurant manager. There will still be a nominal fee in there for a registration of someone that would be able to be a contact for our licensing authorities should they need to get in contact for any licensing issue or communicating with the restaurants. So that is still in there. Once I get a draft of that, I will share with our clerks. So I should get it either today or tomorrow. I'll let you guys know. And then the liquor task force and possible agreement on the ballot initiatives issue. The task force is still coming. So, but again, still have not seen the final language on that. And then they're still trying to work out if there is any sort of compromise for the ballot initiative to be able to move forward. So we've got like 10 days left for them to do that. So we'll see. Any questions?
We do have one question for you.
Okay.
So for the marijuana bill, does it only require local notification or does it require local approval? If there is a cap in place, I assume they would not be able to then transfer their license if there is none of that type available.
Transfer, so if there's a cap on licenses locally, is that what the question is asking?
I believe so. A cap on retail stores was the follow-up on that.
Okay, I apologize for not being clear. This is not on retail stores. This is on cultivation properties. So it would be changing from a medical cultivation facility to a retail cultivation. So it's only the growth side, not the retail side.
Awesome. Thank you. It looks like that cleared it up.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Nope, okay. How about now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with House Bill 1363. This is accountability to taxpayers of special districts. This bill is being debated on seconds as we speak, and I expect a number of amendments to go on today during seconds. However, I'll just mention, so CML is neutral on the bill. It was heavily amended in the House Transportation and Local Government Committee this week. So now the bill only includes language which is intending to address conflicts of interest between directors and members of the boards of metro districts and the issuance of debt. So it basically says that munis and counties cannot approve a service plan in which there is a conflict of interest. So in which a director, an entity in which a director is affiliated with is purchasing debt and profiting off of the interest of that. And it also prohibits a member of the, it prohibits us to approve a service plan in which a member of the board requires any interest of the debt in which they have issued. So it's just trying to get at that conflict of interest, which they believe exists in some cases. So that is the entirety of the bill now. Most of it was struck in committee. So I will let you know what happens on the floor today and what amendments are added there. House Bill 1272, this is the repeal of attorney's fees on motions to dismiss. So currently in statute, we are allowed to collect attorney's fees if a plaintiff cannot meet minimum standards for moving litigation forward, if we are most often with tort claims. So we were opposed to this. It went to the Senate with an amendment which narrowed the bill quite a bit. We didn't believe that it narrowed it far enough. We believe that there was still broad language in there which would allow a plaintiff attorney to not collect or to not have to pay attorney's fees. So we did try to get an amendment added into the Senate on the Senate floor. Unfortunately, we didn't get the votes, and the bill passed with only the House amendment. The good news is that it wasn't in its original form, which got rid of our ability to collect attorney's fees just in general on these tort claims, but it is somewhat narrowed. Senate Bill 206, Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Resources. So this is a bill that CML currently supports, and it creates the Disaster Resilience Rebuilding Program in DOLA, which provides grants to various entities and individual homeowners who have it to help them rebuild after a natural disaster. So unfortunately, we found out last week, this week, feels like last week, that they are trying to add an amendment onto this bill, which essentially includes the Fire Commission's policy recommendation for statewide minimum WUI building codes. So the language that we saw, so they tried to add, they were going to add that on in the committee this week, and we were able to fend off that amendment, but they are planning on bringing that on seconds, I believe. I don't believe that the bill will be heard today. We're currently in negotiations with the governor's office and others on that and what that will look like. But the language of the amendment, as we read it, it's concerning for a number of reasons. I mean, not only does it preempt local authority for building codes, developing our own building codes, and sets a statewide standards for WUI building codes, it's just very poorly written. It's very vague, and there's no information on how the board would function. So it sets up this code board, and they are tasked with coming up with the codes. They are tasked with, if there are local governments can apply for exemptions to statewide WUI codes if they meet certain standards which are not defined. The standards for exemptions are not defined. They can set fees, which it's unclear in the language who they are setting fees on and how they are doing that. So a lot of questions and just very concerning for us. We have provided some red lines in that amendment with our allies, which are the home builders and the realtors. So we're waiting to see what shakes out with that, if they take any of our red lines. I don't think that would, make us neutral or supportive of that amendment at all. I think that it would just make it a little bit less terrible. So a lot is up in the air on that right now, but at the moment, I do believe that will go on seconds on Senate Bill 206, which would be a problem. So more to come on that. And I think it's also just important to note that if that does go on, our position on that bill would change to support if amended. We certainly don't want to risk the good funding that's already in the bill. I think we would just be working against the amendment language that's added. So I think that that's just an important thing to clarify. Senate Bill 2, this is the resources for volunteer firefighters. This was up on third reading in the House today and passed 58-4. This allows volunteer fire departments to take advantage of funds from the Governor's Emergency Fund and the Wildland Fire Cost Recovery Fund. It also creates a behavioral health trust for professional and volunteer firefighters. We negotiated that with them early on in the process, and while municipalities are required to participate in that, the state is directly pays the cost. So we don't get put in any money or get reimbursed or anything like that. So that bill passed third reading in the House today, and will go to the governor. Senate Bill 28, this is the Groundwater Compact Compliance Fund. So this just funds groundwater use reduction efforts in areas where we have compact agreements on the Rio Grande River Basin and the Republican River Basin. This passed thirds in the House 62-0. So that is great news. House Bill 1011, this is the wildfire mitigation incentives for local governments. This is the bill which would provide matching funds for local governments who have dedicated revenue sources for mitigation. That was up on thirds today and was fully funded in appropriation. So that passed as well on thirds, I believe. Yes, thirds. And then finally, last wildfire bill, House Bill 1379. This is the Wildfire Prevention Watershed Restoration Funding Bill. This is doles out ARPA funding to the various wildfire funds specifically for watershed restoration and flood mitigation. So that passed third reading in the Senate. And we'll move over to, past third reading in the Senate, and that will go to the governor's desk as well. So that is what I have, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Awesome, thanks so much. It doesn't look like we had any questions come through, so I think we can go ahead and wrap up.
McKenna, may I add one more thing?
Yep.
I should have noted this because I think this is new information since the last time we met. House Bill 1024 that purports to apply the state tax exemption to home rule municipalities and require them to also do the sales and use tax exemption for public school projects. CML did advocate for the governor to veto that piece of legislation. Unfortunately, he did sign it, I believe, on April 19th. So I wanted to let you know that has happened. However, I know CML will be convening some legal minds to discuss next steps on that, potentially a judicial effort as well. All right, with that, I am actually done. Thank you, McKenna.
I had one more thing to also add. I'm so sorry. So we had been talking throughout the session about a bill around the Colorado Open Records Act. We got word that the Press Association has scrapped that draft, and they will not be running that this session. So that's great news. That's all I had to add.
Perfect, thank you. Well, one, I just want to thank our advocacy team for all of the work that you're doing, and just remind everyone else that the last Statehouse report webinar is May 13th. That'll be our legislative wrap up, so please go ahead and register for that. Again, this is recorded and will be provided on Monday. I'm going to follow up with one more question for Heather before we close really quick. It just came through. What was the bill number for the Volunteer Firefighters Fund?
It's Senate Bill 2.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, with that, I think we can be done now. So enjoy the rest of your afternoons. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.